Are you kidding me? If I had to travel through time, why couldn't I have become the Changhua, Jiajing, or Wanli Emperor? Even being a useless regional prince would have been better than this. Instead, I ended up as the most unlucky emperor in history. I stood under an old locust tree on Maishan Hill. After half an hour of questioning my own sanity, I finally accepted the cold, hard truth. I had traveled back to the 7th year of the Tianqi era. I was the newly crowned Emperor Chongzhen. History remembers Chongzhen as a man who had the ambition to save the Ming dynasty but lacked the power to do it. Internal rebellions, external invasions, corrupt officials, and endless natural disasters. He struggled for 17 years only to watch his empire crumble. In the end, he hanged himself right here, on this very tree. In my opinion, the original Zhu Yujian practically played himself to death. If he hadn't made so many fatal mistakes, the dynasty could have lasted at least another decade or two. Someone come here. Chop this tree down. I shouted. I paused, looking at the crooked branches. Actually, never mind. Just lock it up with iron chains. I had cleared my head. My first instinct was to destroy the tree that would one day be my gallows, but I realized that if I truly wanted to hang myself, there were plenty of places in the palace to do it. Locking it up would serve as a constant reminder to never let things reach that point. Standing behind me, the eunuch Wang Qingjin looked confused. He didn't understand why I'd give such a strange order, but to him, my word was law. He quickly whispered instructions to a junior eunuch to carry it out. I sat down in a nearby pavilion and began to think. I had 17 years left. The foundation of the Ming dynasty was still there. Maybe it could be saved. Since I couldn't change the fact that I was here, I had to adapt. Looking at the situation, I saw 3 paths. First, I could be a lazy ruler. I could pick a few more concubines, skip every morning court session, and enjoy 17 years of luxury before the end came. It wouldn't be a bad way to spend a life. Second, I could be a tyrant. I could execute Wei Zhongmian's faction, the Donglin faction, and every traitor who secretly sided with the Jurchens. If I was going down, I could at least drag them all to hell with me. Third, I could be a wise ruler. I could rewrite the ending of the Ming dynasty and extend its life by centuries. Being a lazy ruler was too dangerous. Out of the 16 Ming emperors, 10 died under suspicious circumstances. My father died after taking a red pill from a eunuch. My brother fell into a lake, got sick, took immortal medicine, and died at 23. If I just sat around playing, I'd probably end up drowned or poisoned before the rebels even reached the gates. Being a tyrant wasn't an option yet either. I didn't have control of the military. I could kill a few scholars, but if I tried to wipe them all out, they'd kill me first. That left being a wise ruler. But the country was a mess. Famines were everywhere, enemies were at the borders, and corrupt officials controlled the government. My orders couldn't even make it out of Beijing. Any reform would hurt the interests of the elite, and they would unite against me. Lazy, tyrant, wise, none of them work. I muttered, feeling defeated. Is the world trying to force me into a corner? This was hell mode difficulty. Even if the founding emperors came back to life, they would have to walk on eggshells. During Chongzhen's reign, it was as if heaven itself wanted the Ming to fall. The Great Famine in Shaanxi and Hunan was relentless. Internally, rebels like Li Zicheng were rising. Externally, the Jurchens were slaughtering their way through the borders. I thought about the future, the piles of white bones in the fields, the thousands of miles where no rooster crowed because everyone was dead. My heart heavy, I sighed. Wang Qingjin watched me from a distance. He saw my face shift from deep thought to grief, from confusion to anger. To him, I was just a 17-year-old boy who had been handed the weight of a dying empire. He looked at me with genuine pity. I took a deep breath and calmed down. Anger wouldn't solve anything. Wang Qingjin, how long has it been since I took the throne? Your Majesty, you succeeded the throne on August 24th. Today is September 16th. It has been 23 days. I felt a slight relief, but the headache remained. According to history, I hadn't moved against the powerful eunuch Wei Zhongxian yet. That meant he and his eunuch faction were still in full control. Wei Zhongxian was a double-edged sword. As long as he was around, the scholar officials of the Donglin party were kept in check, and he was an expert at raising money. But he was also a ticking bomb. He had hidden the death of the previous emperor and even tried to block my path to the throne. Theoretically, his power came from me. I could kill him with a single decree. But in reality, the cabinet, the secret police, and the palace guards were all his people. If I moved too fast, he could turn me into dust. In history, the original Chongjin spent 3 months testing him with rewards and slowly maneuvering before finally striking. I had to be just as careful. I can do this, I whispered to myself. I didn't have a magical system or superpowers, but I had the benefit of hindsight. I knew who the loyal ministers were and who the traitors were. I had modern knowledge and a vision of the world that no one else in this era possessed. I looked back at the locust tree, my gaze hardening. Zhu Yujian, you can rest in peace now, I said under my breath. I am taking over. From this moment on, I am the 16th emperor of the Ming. I am Chongjin. I made a silent vow. The people Zhu Yujian couldn't kill, I would kill. The things he couldn't achieve, I would achieve. If Li Zicheng wants to rebel, I won't give him the chance. If the Jurchens want to slaughter my people, I will wipe them from the face of the earth. If the wealthy merchants are selling out the country, I will seize their wealth and execute their lineages. If the scholars are spineless traitors, I will turn their world upside down. I want every citizen of the Ming to live with dignity. I want a country without fear. One day, the northern tribes will be our pastures. The western lands will be our orchards. Southeast Asia will be our granary. The coastal waters will be our fishing grounds. I will extend the Ming's destiny for another 300 years. As I finished my vow, I felt a strange sense of relief. The weight was still there, but now I had a goal. The morning sun hit my face, and for the first time, I felt powerful. I decided then, I would be a tyrant. Not the kind who was cruel for fun, but the kind who used absolute force to get things done. From now on, the Ming dynasty belongs to me. The matter of my reign title was already settled. According to tradition, a new emperor's title is chosen the moment he ascends the throne, and since I had arrived nearly a month late, I was stuck with Chongjin. If I had arrived earlier, I would have picked Qiansheng from the options the cabinet provided. It sounded much more dominant. Still, Chongjin wasn't bad. It sounded like Chongjin, meaning to rebuild and revitalize the Ming. It had a good omen. Right now, it was officially the 7th year of the Tianqi era. My own era name wouldn't technically start until next year. I turned around and looked at the forbidden city bathed in the morning sun. In the distance, the rooftops of Beijing stretched out, smoke from breakfast fires curling into the sky. I knew the future. If I hadn't come here, this city would be surrounded by invaders in just 2 years. In a little over a decade, a plague would sweep through these streets, killing 200,000 people. But I was here now. From this moment on, I would protect the Ming. Protection required capital, and I was short on it. Inside the palace, the eunuch Wei Zhongxian was already plotting. Outside, the various political factions were busy deceiving their superiors and oppressing those below them. The common people were being sold out by greedy merchants, and beyond the borders, enemies watched like hungry tigers, waiting for the Ming to collapse. It was a mess. If I didn't handle this right, I'd be joining my late brother in the afterlife sooner than expected. I needed to ensure my own safety before I could do anything else. After thinking it over, I remembered a specific person. If I had him by my side, I could at least guarantee I wouldn't be assassinated in my sleep. Find me Dongfang Bubi, I said. Wang Qingjin repeated the name blankly, his face a mask of utter confusion. If a person actually went by the name Invincible East, they were basically begging for a quick death. Your Majesty, Wang Qingjin stammered. Is this Dongfang Bubi a person or a place? I waved my hand to cut him off. There is a eunuch in the palace named Fang Zhenghua. He is a master of martial arts. Find out where he's stationed and bring him to me immediately. I obey your command, Wang Qingjin replied. He was confused, but my word was law. I took one last look at the city and headed back to the Palace of Heavenly Purity. My empress, Zhou Yufeng, was waiting by the gates. Her face was pale with worry. As soon as she saw me, she rushed forward. Your Majesty, it's cold and damp this morning, and your health is fragile. Why did you go out? It's fine, I said, trying to soothe her. The air is fresh. I feel much better. I'm sorry for worrying you. I looked at her closely. History books described her as beautiful and dignified, with skin like white jade. They weren't lying. She was a woman of great character who, in the original timeline, would hang herself right before Beijing fell. Her final words were heartbreaking. She had served the emperor for 18 years, but he never listened to her advice. Now that I was here, that tragedy would never happen. After breakfast, Wang Qingjin returned. He told me that Fang Zhenghua was waiting outside. I stood up instantly, barely hiding my excitement, and walked to the side hall. "Your servant, Fang Zhenghua, greets your majesty," a eunuch said, dropping to his knees. "Stand up. Let me look at you." I studied him. Fang Zhenghua was tall with a steady, determined face. His eyes were bright, and the veins on the backs of his hands were prominent. He didn't look like a typical eunuch at all. He looked like a warrior. He seemed nervous under my intense stare. "Fang Zhenghua," I said coolly, "I hear you are a master of martial arts. They say dozens of men can't even get close to you. Is that true?" The question hit him like a thunderclap. He dropped back to his knees, trembling. "Your Majesty, forgive me." "Stand up," I said, feeling a bit frustrated by the constant kneeling. "I want to see it for myself. If the rumors are true, I have a job for you." In history, Fang Zhenghua was a legend. He would eventually become a high-ranking official and die defending a city against rebels, killing dozens of enemies himself before falling. Right now, he was in his 30s, his absolute prime. Some people even whispered that he was the real-life inspiration for the fictional Invincible East. "I obey," he whispered, looking relieved. When it came to fighting, he didn't fear anyone in this palace. Half an hour later, I arrived at the capital's military training grounds with a massive retinue. I didn't like what I saw. The guards were lazy. The patrols moved with weak footsteps. The soldiers were just going through the motions. I felt a surge of anger, but kept my face neutral. The Inspector General of the Capital Army, Zhang Weixian, rushed over with a group of nobles to greet me. "We greet your Majesty. May you live 10,000 years. Rise," I said flatly. "I want a 100-man squad from the Wu force. Bring them here. Wang Qingjin, go with them." Zhang Weixian sent his son, Zhang Zhiji, to fetch the men. As they walked away, the son tried to slip a bag of silver to Wang Qingjin, asking what the emperor was up to. Wang Qingjin didn't even look at the money. He just told the boy to move faster before I lost my patience. I stood on the high platform, staring out at the field in silence. The generals around me were sweating. They didn't know if I was here for a casual inspection or if I was about to start cutting heads. 100 soldiers soon lined up. Wang Qingjin announced the rules. Anyone who could defeat Fang Zhenghua would get 100 taels of silver. Anyone who killed him would be promoted to a centurion. The soldiers cheered, thinking this would be easy. Fang Zhenghua remained perfectly calm. "Go," I commanded. It was a blur. Fang Zhenghua moved like a ghost among the soldiers. Every time he struck, a man was forced out of the fight. I was mesmerized. This wasn't the fake kung fu from movies. This man was jumping 6 feet into the air and moving with lethal precision. In less than 15 minutes, it was over. I was thrilled, but I let my face turn dark. The generals looked like they wanted to crawl into a hole. Out of the 100-man squad, 63 were dead, according to the rules of the exercise. "Lord Zhang," I said, looking at the Inspector General, "your army needs more practice." "I deserve death," Zhang Weixian cried, slamming his forehead against the ground. "Please punish me, your Majesty." I looked at him. The old fox was playing it safe. "That's enough. I still need you to guard the capital." I turned and walked toward my carriage. "Return to the palace," Wang Qingjin shouted. Behind me, 100 generals remained on their knees, trembling in the dust. The generals shouted their farewells as my carriage rolled out of the camp. Once I was gone, they swarmed around the Duke of Britain, Zhang Weixian. He didn't wait for them to speak. He snapped, telling them all to shut their mouths. He was furious. A whole squad couldn't handle one eunuch, and 60 men had been humiliated. He ordered them to start training immediately and meet at his estate that night. As he watched my carriage disappear, his eyes were filled with unease. Back in the winter warming pavilion, I looked at Fang Zhenghua. I told him I was satisfied. I had other plans for him, but I realized I had too few people I could actually trust. I told him he would stay by my side to guard me. He knelt instantly, swearing he would die for me. He hesitated for a moment before speaking again. He told me he had trained 8 disciples. They weren't as skilled as him, but each could easily take on 2 elite soldiers. He offered to bring them in. I asked if they were absolutely loyal. He promised they were. From the moment they entered the palace, he had ingrained one thought into their minds: loyalty to the emperor and the Ming dynasty. They would die on command. I felt a surge of relief. If even half of my ministers had Fang Zhenghua's loyalty, the rebels Li Ziqing and Zhang Xinzhong would be a joke. With these 9 men, I wouldn't have to worry about someone breaking into my room at night or accidentally falling into a pond. He thought for a second and said moving 1 or 2 people wouldn't be a problem. I was thrilled. I told him to pick 2 disciples. I gave them a secret imperial decree and told them to ride day and night to Zhongzhou and Sichuan. Their mission was to bring Qin Liangyu and her white cavalry to the capital. I handed over a special imperial sword. I told him to tell Qin Liangyu that she had my personal authority. If anyone dared to block her path, she was to execute them first and report later. Fang Zhenghua took the order. I told him that the moment Qin Liangyu arrived in the capital, he would take over the Directorate of Royal Horses. He froze, his eyes wide with disbelief. In the palace hierarchy, the Directorate of Ceremonial and the Directorate of Royal Horses were the 2 pillars of power. Ceremonial handled the paperwork and the bureaucracy. They were the inner cabinet. But the Royal Horses handled the weapons and the horses. They were the inner Ministry of War. Most importantly, they controlled the emperor's personal army, the elite of the elite. By giving him this, I was making him my sword. He knelt again, shaking. He vowed to be my blade and kill whoever I pointed at. I told him not to stay idle. He needed to investigate the current state of the directorate and find more talent. I turned to Wang Qinjin and told him to prepare the decree. I warned them both that until Qin Liangyu received the order, the cabinet and the Ministry of War must not know. This was a middle decree. It hadn't gone through the official bureaucracy. If the cabinet found out, they could veto it, and the order would never even leave the city. As they left the pavilion, Wang Qinjin congratulated Fang Zhenghua. Fang Zhenghua lowered his voice and gave Wang Qinjin a warning. He told him not to be jealous of the power others were getting. He reminded Wang that all their power came from me. If I wanted someone dead, they were dead. But since Wang stayed by my side day and night, he was the closest to me. He told him not to be foolish. Wang Qinjin stood there, breaking into a cold sweat. He realized how close he had come to letting greed cloud his judgment. He bowed deeply to Fang Zhenghua, thanking him for the wake-up call. Inside the pavilion, I tapped my fingers on the desk. To fix the empire, I had to fix my home first. To fix the world, I had to fix the palace. I had to stay alive to make changes. Right now, the palace was a sieve. My enemies probably knew what I ate for dinner the second I finished my meal. I needed military power. Out of the 26 Imperial Guard units, the civil officials had stripped power from almost all of them. Only a few were still directly under the emperor's control. Even the Jinyuwei, the secret police, were currently led by Wei Zhongxian's lackeys. They were useless to me right now. I couldn't trust Wei Zhongxian. History said he hid the death of the previous emperor. He had tried to kill me on my way to the palace. If he felt cornered, he might try to burn everything down. Rebuilding my personal guard was essential, but it would be a political nightmare. And it would be expensive. I looked at my accounts. I was basically broke. 200,000 or 300,000 taels wasn't nearly enough. The national treasury was empty, and even if it weren't, the officials would block me from touching a single cent. It would take Qin Liangyu's troops about a month and a half to march from Sichuan to the north. I had that much time to find money, identify the empire's biggest leaks, and deal with the warring political factions. It was a delicate dance. If I had the absolute military control the founding emperors had, I would have executed them all already. But I didn't. I had to be careful not to get myself killed while building my foundation. The first 2 steps were in motion. Now, I just had to wait for Qin Liangyu. Wang Tiqian, the chief eunuch of the Directorate of Ceremonial, was waiting outside. Fang Zhenhua had brought him along because the man had initially refused to hand over the imperial seals. I felt a flicker of helplessness. The Ming dynasty operated on a dual-track system between the Directorate of Ceremonial and the Grand Secretariat. On paper, imperial power was highly centralized. In reality, this setup made the emperor's actual control incredibly fragile. "Tell him to crawl in here," I snapped. A moment later, Wang Tiqian entered. Before he could even settle in, my voice cut through the air, low and cold. Wang Tiqian, since when do I need your permission to look at my own imperial seals? He trembled violently and hit the floor with a heavy thud. Your servant deserves death. I was only worried that Eunuch Wang was using your majesty's name too. Enough, I barked. It's been verified now, hasn't it? Get out. He scrambled away as fast as he could. I reviewed the decree one last time, pressed the imperial seal onto the paper, and handed the scroll to Fang Jinhua. Go. Move quickly. As Fang Jinhua left, I turned my gaze toward Wang Qingyan. He looked a bit stiff. Old companion, I've given Fang Jinhua control of the Directorate of Royal Horses. Do you have any grievances about that? Wang Qingyan's heart skipped a beat. He dropped to his knees instantly. Master, I wouldn't dare. We both serve you. As long as I take good care of you, my role is more important than any seal holders. I know my own limits. I'm good at small chores, but I lack the vision for big affairs. He looked up at me, his voice sincere. People live for 4 things: wealth, power, fame, and lust. Money is useless to a man like me. Lust is, well, out of the question. My talent for power is average. That only leaves fame. You have the potential of the great ancient kings. You are destined to be a sage ruler. When that time comes, if the history books mention my name alongside yours, I'll be satisfied. I looked at him, feeling a rare sense of comfort. I could tell he meant it. You see things clearly. Stay by my side, and I won't mistreat you. Get up. He looked relieved, likely glad he'd listened to Fang Jinhua's earlier advice. But before he could stand, my next words sent him right back down to the floor. Old companion, did the Duke of Ingwa's son try to slip you some silver at the capital camp today? Wang Qingyan's face went pale. Master, young Lord Zhang did offer some, but I didn't dare take it. I blinked, surprised. You didn't take it? Next time someone offers you silver, take it. Those people have more money than they know what to do with. It's a waste not to. Use it to supplement the palace expenses, and more importantly, keep a record of who gives the most. I have a use for that list. Wang Qingyan stared at me, completely stunned. He couldn't believe an emperor was encouraging his subordinates to take bribes. It went against every rule of royal dignity. But I didn't care about dignity. The original Emperor Chongzhen had been obsessed with face. He had refused to beg his officials for money or move the capital when he had the chance, all because of his pride. I wasn't him. I was from the 21st century. I knew that face couldn't buy grain or pay soldiers. You should know what to say and what not to say, I told him. Dismissed. He walked out of the warm pavilion looking utterly dazed. I had completely broken his worldview. Left alone, I pulled out a sheet of paper. I thought for a long time before writing down a few names. These were the men who, in the original timeline 17 years from now, would die fighting alongside Fang Jinhua, Gao Shiming, Li Fengxiang, Chu Xianzhang, and Zhang Guiyuan. My political skills might have been shaky, but my calligraphy was excellent, easily top 3 among the Ming emperors. I paused, then added one more name, Gao Yushuan. He was the last chief eunuch of the Directorate of Ceremonial. When the rebel Li Zicheng breached the capital, Gao had prepared a coffin and a bonfire. He told his subordinates that if the city fell, he would jump into the flames rather than surrender. And he did exactly that. These men weren't perfect, but they were loyal to the core. Once the time was right, I would bring them into my inner circle. Master, it's time for lunch. Wang Qingyan returned, interrupting my thoughts. I headed to the central hall of the Qianxing Palace. A long table was set with 12 exquisite dishes: vinegar pepper shrimp, roasted goose, lamb's head, and various delicacies. I ate my fill, but back in the pavilion afterward, I couldn't help but scoff at the history books. They always claimed Chongzhen was frugal. Sure, 12 dishes were fewer than what other emperors ate, but the frugality was a joke. Take the last dish, a simple wild vegetable salad. The story went that the emperor ate it to experience the hardships of the common people. I had asked Wang Qingyan how it was made. He told me they stuffed the vegetables inside a goose, boiled them in a rich broth, washed them with wine, and then tossed them with ginseng and deer antler. What kind of peasant eats like that? It was ridiculous. But, God, it tasted amazing. After a short nap, I got back to work. I needed to map out the rot in this empire. I sat in silence for nearly an hour before putting pen to paper. If anyone else had seen what I wrote, they would have been terrified. The header read, 10 Reasons for the Fall of the Ming Dynasty. 1. The Collapse of Merchant Morality. 2. The Drain of Fighting on 3 Fronts. 3. Constant Natural Disasters. 4 Plagues. 5. Lawless Political Infighting. 6. The Rise of Local Warlords. 7. The Loss of Military Ethics. 8. Shameless Scholars. 9. Failure of the Unified Front. 10. Weakening of Central Authority. None of these issues alone would kill the empire, but together, they were a death sentence. I didn't bother listing things like eunuch power or corruption. Those were symptoms, not the disease. I decided to focus on 4 priorities: the merchants, the 3-front war, the political factions, and the warlords. The merchants were the worst. As Marx said, for 300% profit, capital will trample all laws and even commit treason. The 8 great merchants of the North were already trading forbidden supplies to the Jin invaders and acting as their spies. I circled their names. To me, they weren't just traders. They were a massive pile of cash waiting to be seized. Then there was the war. I was fighting the Jin in the north, and rebels like Li Ziqing and Zhang Xinzhong in the interior. Meanwhile, Western powers were eyeing the south, and Mongols were raiding the borders. The empire was a sinking ship, and I was just plugging holes with my fingers. The political infighting was at its peak. The Donglin faction would oppose anything their rivals supported, regardless of whether it helped the country. They had no bottom line. And finally, the warlords. For now, they were still somewhat obedient, but soon, they would realize that having soldiers meant they were the boss. They would take my money and ignore my orders. Even now, with the capital recently threatened, the cracks were showing. I leaned back, looking at the list. It was a mess, but at least now, I had a target. Zhuo Liangyu held 800,000 troops in his hands, yet he didn't lift a finger to save the capital when it mattered. I wrote several names behind each problem on my list. Every time my brush touched the paper, my anger flared. After a long silence, I added 2 more words to the bottom: Imperial Clan. I planned to settle that debt slowly. Once I finished, I let out a long, heavy breath. Thank God it was only the 7th year of the Tianqi era. If I had traveled back to the 17th year of the Chongzhen era, I wouldn't have bothered with a list. I would have just found a sturdy branch on a tree and ended it myself. There would be no point in summarizing experience at the literal end of the world. The 17th year was the point of no return for the Ming dynasty. First, the famine in Shaanxi triggered a massive peasant uprising. Second, a lowly postal courier named Li Ziqing raised his banner in revolt. Third, 3 major military mutinies broke out simultaneously. Finally, Huang Taiji led the Jin elite cavalry around the Great Wall through Mongolia, bypassing our defenses. They smashed through Zhuanhua and pointed their blades directly at the capital. That war killed our best generals and crippled our military structure in the northeast. I looked out the window. The sky was growing dark. Wang Qingjin entered to light the lamps, and the flickering candlelight filled the room. I watched the flames dance on my desk and sighed. The history of 10,000 years is clear in the records. A life of glory is reflected in the writings. Your Majesty, a voice called out. Tian Urjin, commander of the Jinyui, seeks an audience. Let him in, I said, covering my notes with a folder. Tian Urjin walked in and knelt. Your servant, Tian Urjin, greets your Majesty. The commanders of the 3 major camps of the capital guards entered the Duke of Britain's estate through the front gate at the end of the hour of the rooster. They were all wearing full armor. I narrowed my eyes. They weren't even trying to hide it. Summoning the generals to a private residence in armor was a blatant show of force. They were telling me the capital guards belonged to them, not the throne. If it were official business, they would have met at the barracks. Your Majesty, Tian Urjin whispered. Should I send men to find out what they discussed? You're teaching me how to do things now, I asked coldly. Tian Urjin slammed his forehead against the floor. I deserve death. I wouldn't dare. I stared at his trembling back. My heart was cold. I really wanted to tell him, yes, you do deserve death, and I can't wait to behead you. But I couldn't say it yet. The Jinyui were supposed to be the emperor's eyes and ears, but that changed when Wei Zhonghan took power. Most of the high-ranking officers, including Tian Urjin, had sold their souls to the eunuch faction. They were dogs for the eunuch party. I decided to wait until Qin Liangyu's elite troops arrived in the capital before settling this account. Forget about the Duke of Britain for now, I said. I heard many people are suckling up to my father-in-law, Zhou Kuei, and sending him lavish gifts. Go investigate that instead. Dismissed. Tian Urgent backed out, his forehead dripping with sweat. He had seen the new emperor several times this month, but he had never felt pressure like this. Once he was clear of the hall, he glanced back and hurried toward the palace gates. The emperor was acting strange. He needed to consult with Wei Zhongxian immediately. I didn't care where he went. My trip to the military camp earlier that day to test Fang Zhenghua's strength had 3 purposes. First, I needed to know if Fang Zhenghua was strong enough to protect me. Second, I wanted to see the state of the capital guards. They were exactly as I feared, old, weak, and useless. Third, I wanted to provoke the Duke of Britain and test the reactions of the eunuch faction and the Donglan faction. I wanted them to fight each other like dogs. Only when the dogs were busy biting each other would I have the chance to beat them. The Duke of Britain thought his hereditary title and his role in putting me on the throne made him untouchable. He was wrong. The capital guards were the only shield for the city. If I didn't fix them, I couldn't fix anything. I picked up my brush and wrote one more name, Li Banghua. If anyone could fix the military, it was him. Even the legendary Sun Qingzong wouldn't be as effective as Li Banghua for this specific job. Wang Qingzhen, I called out. Is Fang Zhenghua back? Send him in. Fang Zhenghua entered and started to kneel, but I cut him off. Skip the formalities. Pick a trusted disciple and take my secret edict. Bring Li Banghua to the capital in secret. Fang Zhenghua paused. Your Majesty, do you mean the Li Banghua who was impeached by Wei Zhongxian last year? Yes, him. Bring him to me quietly. Meanwhile, inside the Duke of Britain's estate, the atmosphere was chaotic. A dozen generals were shouting at each other behind closed doors. Duke, what did the Emperor mean this morning? One yelled. He just took the throne. Shouldn't he be busy with the court factions? Why come to the camps? If he wanted to test a eunuch's martial arts, he has the Jinyui. Why come to us? Enough. Zhang Weixian, the Duke of Britain, slammed his teacup down. The room went silent. His meaning is clear. He's warning us. A new emperor always wants to change things. He's going to move against the capital guards next. I don't care about the corrupt crap you've done in the past, but clean up your acts now. Start training your men. If the emperor catches you, I won't save you. The generals looked grim, but they didn't dare argue. Once they left, the duke's son, Zhang Zhiji, leaned in. Father, is the little emperor really going to turn on us? Without our support, he wouldn't even be sitting on that chair. Is he really that heartless? Slap. Zhang Weixian struck his son across the face. You call him the little emperor again, and you'll find yourself in a grave. No matter how much you look down on him, you never forget your manners. That is how you stay alive. He sighed, his voice dropping to a whisper. He was knocking on our door today. Our family has held this title for 7 generations. We have the merit of supporting his succession, and we control the troops. He shouldn't move against us. But if we push too hard, he might just kill a few nobles to make a point. Keep our people off the streets. Don't cause trouble. I understand, father, the son muttered. Zhang Weixian fell into a deep thought. He felt a storm coming. The interests within the capital guards were a tangled mess. If the emperor really tried to pull those strings, the whole system might collapse. He wondered where the boy got his confidence. Should he stay neutral, or was it time to show loyalty? Back in the palace, I worked straight through the night until the hour of the pig. It was 9 in the evening, and I was just getting started. I spent the rest of the night hunched over my desk, organizing everything I knew into a master plan. I categorized it all: personal security, military power, land reform, foreign policy, economy, industry, and agriculture. Combined with the current state of the empire, it was becoming a blueprint for the sustainable development of the Great Ming. I was about to dive back into the details when a sudden commotion erupted outside. Before I could even call out, Wang Qingzhen rushed in. His face was pale, his eyes wide with terror. What is it? I snapped. Why are you panicking? Your Majesty, he gasped. A report just came from the Xiqing Palace. The Grand Eunuch, Chen Duran, has broken in. He intended to. He stopped, too terrified to finish the sentence. I slammed my hand on the desk and stood up instantly. I cursed myself under my breath. In the chaos of my first day, I had completely forgotten about Chen Durun, the most lecherous eunuch in history. I couldn't sit still for another second. Wang Qinzhen, go to the Cunning Palace. Tell the Empress to go to the Xiqing Palace immediately to stay with my sister-in-law. Tell her it's late and I want to avoid any gossip, so I will pay my respects tomorrow. Tell her I will give her justice for this. I turned to my loyal protector. Fang Zhenghua, take your men and drag Chen Durun back here. I don't care who tries to stop you. Kill them. Do not let him speak to anyone, and do not let him commit suicide. Also, I added, my voice cold, summon Wang Tiqian, Wei Zhongxian, Tian Urjin, and the commander on duty tonight. I want them all here. Now. I walked out to the courtyard of the Qinqing Palace and stared toward the Xiqing Palace. The night air was freezing, but my blood was boiling. A damn eunuch dared to lay a hand on my family? He was seeking death. As my anger cooled, a seed of doubt sprouted. In the history books I remembered, Chen Durun didn't try to assault Empress Yan until after Wei Zhongxian fell. He was supposed to have sneaked in while she was bathing, only to be caught when she fought back. Why was it happening now? Was it a butterfly effect from my arrival, or had he tried this before in secret? I stood there in silence for 15 minutes. 4 burly eunuchs stood guard around me, their long blades shimmering under the lantern light. Finally, Wang Tiqian and Wei Zhongxian arrived. They dropped to their knees, trembling. I didn't say a word to them. Another 15 minutes passed. Tian Urjin and Su Xianshun arrived, breathless. The Jinyui Commander Tian Urjin and Assistant Commander Su Xianshun greet your majesty. I didn't even look at them. The 4 of them knelt there, utterly confused. They had been pulled from their warm beds and dragged into the freezing night, and now their emperor was treating them like ghosts. Another 15 minutes passed before Fang Zhenghua returned. He was dragging a man bound tightly in plain clothes. Your Majesty, I have captured Chen Durun. Tian Urjin and Su Xianshun flinched when they heard the name. They knew Chen Durun's reputation, but they couldn't understand why they were being blamed. The Jinyui handled the outer perimeter. The inner palace was someone else's job. Or so they thought. Chen Durun, I said, my voice dangerously low. You have a lot of nerve. Your Majesty, the eunuch cried out. I simply took a wrong turn into the Xiqing Palace. Please, have mercy. A wrong turn. I laughed, a harsh, jagged sound. Are you saying the Empress Dowager is lying to me? Or are you calling me a fool? Wei Zhongxian cleared his throat, his voice a low rasp. Your Majesty, perhaps there is some misunderstanding. Shut up, I roared, cutting him off. Did I ask for your opinion? I turned back to Fang Zhenghua. Take this dog down and torture him. I want every crime he has ever committed written down in detail. Use every method you know. As they dragged him away, the screams began almost immediately. Chen Durun was soft, pampered by years of luxury. He didn't last long. Within minutes, Fang Zhenghua returned with a stack of papers. I scanned the list, and my fury returned tenfold. This eunuch had 9 wives hidden away. He had dozens of palace maids forced into partnerships with him. He had extorted hundreds of thousands of taels and bribes. Tie him up, I commanded. I have a use for him tomorrow. If he dies tonight, I will execute 3 generations of your families. Wang Qinzhen, go seize his house. Kill every male relative, exile the women, and seize every coin for the treasury. Every palace maid involved with him is to be exiled immediately. I turned my gaze to the kneeling Jinyui officers. Was your bed warm tonight? I stepped forward and kicked Su Xianshun squarely in the chest, sending him sprawling. Someone broke into the Empress Dowager's chambers. What is the Jinyui for? Are you waiting for someone to walk into my bedroom and kill me before you decide to do your jobs? Your Majesty, we only handle the outer. Oh, you only handle the outer perimeter. I sneered. Tell me, what time do the Jinyun and Longzong gates lock every evening? The blood drained from their faces. They realized the trap. If the gates were locked, Chen Durun couldn't have gotten in without a lapse in their security. Your Majesty, we deserve death. Please, have mercy. They wailed, slamming their heads against the stone floor. I looked at Wang Qinzhen. According to the laws of the Ming, what is the punishment for this? Your Majesty, the Jinyui are the Emperor's personal guard. Their lives are yours to take. For a failure this grave, it is a death sentence. Fang Zhenghua drew his blade. The steel sang in the quiet night. The officers began to shiver violently, begging for their lives. "Take them out and behead them," I said. As I spoke, I watched Wei Zhongxian out of the corner of my eye. These two were his men. I wanted to see if he would break. Sure enough, he looked up. "Your Majesty, may I say a word?" "Speak." "There are nearly 15,000 eunuchs and 3,000 maids in this palace," Wei Zhongxian said smoothly. "The guards cannot know every face. It is natural to have a slip-up. Besides, the real failure lies with the internal patrol. They are the final line of defense. If you execute these commanders, it will cause panic among the ranks. It might lead to instability." I felt a cold smile touch my lips. He was blaming the inner guard to protect his puppets. And that last part? A veiled threat. He was telling me that if I touched his people, the military might revolt. He thought he still held the cards. He was wrong. It was a blatant threat. Wei Zhongxian wasn't even trying to hide his defiance anymore. Was he loyal? Sure, but he was loyal to the late emperor, not to me. Every new emperor brings a new court, and we both knew it. He was fighting so hard for Tian Urjin and Su Xianshun because they were his primary tools. If they died, he'd lose his grip on the Jinyui. I felt a surge of frustration. Being an emperor in this mess was suffocating. I couldn't even trust the people inside my own palace. My father and brother had both died under suspicious circumstances, and I wasn't about to be next. I let a heavy silence hang in the air, pretending to deliberate. "The guards on duty tonight at the Genie Gate and Longzone Gate are dismissed," I finally declared. "They are never to be hired again. Give them 20 strokes of the military cane as well." I turned my gaze to the two commanders. "Tian Urjin, Su Xianshun, by law, I should execute your entire families for this failure. But, since you have been loyal in the past, and because Wei Zhongxian has pleaded for you, I will spare your lives. But you will not go unpunished." I stripped them of their high ranks and demoted them to minor officials. I docked their pay for a year and ordered 20 strokes of the cane for each. "Wei Zhongxian," I said coldly, "are you satisfied with this result?" Wei Zhongxian paused for a few seconds before bowing low. "The Emperor's thunder and rain are both blessings. I thank your Majesty for his grace." Tian Urjin and Su Xianshun looked relieved. They thought they had cheated death. To them, a demotion and 20 strokes were nothing. The Jinyui were their people. Those guards wouldn't dare swing the canes hard. They figured they could just bully any new commander I appointed anyway. As for the fine, pocket change. But I wasn't finished. "Fang Zhenghua," I barked. "You will administer the punishment personally." The color drained from their faces. Fang Zhenghua had just killed 60 men single-handedly earlier that day. His reputation as a monster in combat had already spread. If he swung the cane, they wouldn't be walking for a month, martial arts training or not. "My lords," Fang Zhenghua said, stepping forward with a terrifying calm. "Shall I drag you out, or will you walk?" They didn't say a word. They shuffled toward the courtyard. I turned back to the two most powerful eunuchs in the room. "Wang Taigan, you head the Directorate of Ceremonies. You oversee all 24 departments. Is this how you oversee them? And Wei Zhongxian, Chen Derun was your man. Is this how you train your subordinates? Do you both claim to be blameless in this?" Their expressions shifted instantly. "Your Majesty, Enough," I snapped, cutting them off. "I'm tired of the excuses. Tomorrow, Chen Derun will be executed. The two of you will do it yourselves. You will each carve 50 pieces of flesh from him. If he dies one cut short of 100, I will take the remaining cuts out of your own skin. Everything needed for the execution comes out of your own pockets. Now get out." I didn't give them a chance to argue. I turned and walked into the inner study. My back felt cold. I knew I was playing with fire. If I pushed Wei Zhongxian too hard, he might actually trigger a revolt. He had been testing my boundaries, and I had been testing his. Forcing them to personally execute their own man was a message to the entire palace. I was the one in control. A while later, Fang Zhenghua entered. "It is done, master. I hit them hard. They won't be leaving their beds for at least a month. It'll be 3 before they're fully recovered." "Good job," I said. That was exactly what I needed. A month without those two running the Jinyui gave me the window I needed to move my own pieces. It was past midnight. I was too exhausted to keep working on my reform plans, so I locked my notes in a heavy gold-reinforced chest. It was the Ming Dynasty equivalent of a safe. Opening it quietly was impossible. Guard this room, I told Feng Zhenghua. No one enters without my permission. I headed to the cunning palace. My wife, Empress Zhou, was just returning from visiting the Empress Dowager. She insisted on greeting me properly, but I stopped her. As I sat down, she began to gently massage my temples. Her hands were soft, and for the first time all day, I felt the tension leave my body. "How is my sister-in-law?" I asked. "She was shaken, Your Majesty," Zhou replied softly. "I stayed with her for a while and made sure the inner guards were posted. She should be asleep by now." "Thank you, my dear. It's late. Let's rest." The next morning, I slept in until 8. After washing up, I headed straight for the Meridian Gate. The high-ranking officials and ministers were already gathered, whispering among themselves. They snapped to attention the moment I appeared. "Gentlemen," I announced to the confused crowd, "I know you've all been working hard. Today, I've invited you to watch a play." 2 guards dragged a bound and gagged Chen to run forward. I looked at the 2 lead eunuchs. "Wang Taigan, Wei Zhongxian, begin." With grim faces, they stepped forward with blades in hand. Chen Durun began to scream through his gag, his eyes wild with terror. When they pulled the cloth from his mouth, he didn't beg. He cursed me. "You dog emperor. You won't die a natural death. Zhu Yujian, I'll be waiting for you in hell." My face darkened. "Wei Zhongxian, do it." Wei Zhongxian was the head of the Eastern Depot. He knew exactly how to make a death slow. One cut after another. Chen Durun's shrieks echoed across the square, making the minister's skin crawl. They were trembling, some looking away in horror. After Wei Zhongxian finished his 50 cuts, they forced a medicinal soup down the dying man's throat to keep his heart beating. Then, it was Wang Taigan's turn. When the 100 cuts were finished, Feng Zhenghua stepped forward. A flash of cold steel followed, and Chen Durun's head spun through the air, landing right in the middle of the group of ministers. "The play is over," I said, my voice steady despite the bile rising in my throat. "I hope you all feel relaxed now. Go back to your duties." I turned and walked away, leaving a crowd of terrified, shell-shocked officials behind me. It was a warning to the eunuchs, the maids, and the ministers alike. I wanted them to know that I wasn't just a boy on a throne. I was a man who could kill. As I left, I heard Wei Zhongxian's cold voice behind me, warning the ministers not to gossip if they valued their lives. A few minutes later, I arrived at the Xiqing Palace. Empress Zhou and the late emperor's widow, Zhang Yin, were waiting at the door. "Empress Zhang Yin greets your majesty," she said, bowing. "Sister-in-law, we are family. There is no need for such formality," I said, lifting my hand to stop her. As she stood up, I couldn't help but be struck by her beauty. I had seen plenty of stars and models in my old life through a screen, but they couldn't compare to her. She was breathtaking. Compared to Zhang Yin, any woman I had ever seen before felt like a cheap imitation. Her face held the serene grace of a bodhisattva, her eyes shimmered like autumn ripples, and her lips were as red as cinnabar. She had a high, elegant bridge to her nose and perfect teeth. It was no wonder history remembered her as one of the 5 most beautiful empresses. "Sister-in-law," I said, breaking the silence. "Last night was my oversight. I'm sorry you were frightened. I've already punished those responsible. It won't happen again." "Thank you, Your Majesty, for seeking justice for me," she replied softly. I waved my hand dismissively and took a seat. "Sister-in-law, I actually came here today because I wanted to have a heart-to-heart talk with you." I saw the confusion in my wife Empress Zhou's eyes and the slight flicker of hesitation on Zhang Yan's face. I realized how it looked, an emperor visiting his widowed sister-in-law for a chat. "Don't misunderstand," I added quickly. "I truly have matters of state to discuss." Feng Zhenghua, my loyal protector, stepped forward. "Clear the area," I commanded. "I don't want anyone within 10 paces of this hall. Anyone who dares to approach without permission, kill them on the spot." Feng Zhenghua nodded and gestured. Within seconds, every eunuch and maid filed out, leaving the 3 of us alone in the heavy silence of the palace. "Sister-in-law," I began, my voice dropping. "How do you view the current situation in the court?" Zhang Yan's face went pale. She dropped to her knees instantly. "Your Majesty, the harem must not interfere in politics. This was the rule set by the founding emperor. I dare not speak." "Fenger, help her up," I told my wife. I sighed, feeling a bit frustrated by the rigid formality. Sister-in-law, I genuinely want your opinion. Think of this as a private family conversation behind closed doors. Even commoners talk about the world over dinner. Why can't we? She remained silent, her eyes downcast. I decided to change my approach. Do you think I'm weak? I asked. Are you disappointed that I didn't seize the chance to kill Wei Zhongxian last night? Before she could answer, I pressed on. I know Wei Zhongxian and Madame Cook controlled the palace. I know they were responsible for the deaths of my brothers and sisters. I know they are the reason you can never have children. You must want to eat their flesh and drink their blood. I get it. But do you understand the mess the Great Ming is in right now? I started pacing, ticking points off on my fingers. First, the factional infighting is out of control. It's not just Wei Zhongxian's eunuch party. You have the Donglin faction, the Qi faction, the Chu faction, the Xin faction. They are tearing the country apart for their own gain. Second, the people are taxed to the bone, yet the treasury is empty. Third, the army is a joke. Generals are pocketing the pay for soldiers who don't exist. They're becoming independent warlords. With every word, the two women looked more horrified. The night I entered the palace 20 days ago, you warned me not to eat the food here. I reminded her. I spent my first night as emperor hiding biscuits in my sleeves just to survive. If the Duke of Britain hadn't personally carried my sedan chair to the hall, I might not have even made it to the throne. You hate them? I hate them more. I stopped and looked her in the eye. Wei Zhongxian controls the Eastern Depot. He controls the brushes that sign the edicts. Half the ministers in the capital have sold their souls to him. If I try to kill him now, my orders won't even leave the palace walls. They'd launch a coup before the ink was dry. I've heard the rumors. Wei and the Jinui commander were already plotting to replace me with the Prince of Fu's son. If I strike too early and fail, we all die. I can't gamble with your lives. Empress Zhou couldn't help herself. But your majesty, what about the Duke of Britain? He controls the capital guards. He supports you. Feng'er, you're too innocent, I said, shaking my head. The Duke is loyal to the throne, not the man sitting on it. If I hadn't had my brother's final edict, he would have been just as happy to put the Prince of Fu on the throne. These noble families are opportunists. They stay neutral to protect their own status. If they truly cared, would they have let the eunuchs and the Donglin faction fight this long? I saw the color drain from their faces, so I softened my tone. Every day I sit on this throne, my power grows more stable. I need time. Even when I eventually take full control, I might not kill Wei Zhongxian immediately. Zhang Yin looked like she wanted to protest, but I raised my hand. Right now, he's a tool. His power balances the Donglin faction. But in doing so, he broke the balance. He let the Donglin faction take over, and they bled the country dry with their scholar-official ideals. People blamed Wei Zhongxian for the fall of the Ming, but at least when he was in charge, the treasury had money. The soldiers on the front lines were actually getting paid. He knew what it was like to be poor, so he taxed the mines and the factories instead of just the starving farmers. I wasn't going to make the same mistake. I was going to be the puppet master, not the puppet. I looked at Zhang Yan, waiting for her to process everything I had said. I needed her to trust me. In this den of snakes, she was one of the few people I could truly call family. Zhou Yufeng's eyes sparkled as she listened to me. She looked at me with pure admiration, like she was seeing a true ruler for the first time. Zhang Yin took a deep breath, her chest heaving as she finally made up her mind. Your Majesty, she said firmly. I understand now. You don't need to worry about my feelings. Do what you must for the sake of the empire. If it means restoring the glory of the Great Ming, my personal grudges are nothing. I felt a massive weight lift off my shoulders. I remembered how the original emperor's brother, Zhu Yuxiao, had been on his deathbed. He had 2 pregnant concubines and told Zhang Yin that if they had sons, she could raise one as her own and put him on the throne. But Zhang Yin had refused. She insisted that I, Zhu Yujian, be the successor. Even when Wei Zhongxian tried to intimidate her into blocking my path, she stood her ground. She told them that whether she obeyed or not, she'd likely end up dead, so she'd rather die with her dignity intact. On the night I took the throne, she was the one who warned me not to eat the palace food. For the first few days of my reign, every meal I ate was prepared by her own hands. She was more than a sister-in-law. She was like a mother to me. I didn't want her to live with bitterness in her heart. Sister-in-law, I said softly. I can't kill Wei Zhongxian just yet, but I can kill Madame Ku. Consider it a down payment on my debt to you. It will also serve as a warning to the eunuch party. I promise you, once the court is stable, Wei Zhongxian will die. I felt a flash of cold ruthlessness. Some might say it's dishonorable to use a man and then discard him, but Wei Zhongxian's crimes deserved 100 deaths. Letting him live a few more months was an act of extreme mercy. Brother, Zhang Yin whispered. Then, she broke down. She had been the empress of the empire for 7 years, always dignified and stern. But now, the dam finally burst. She had entered the palace as a young girl, only to watch her father nearly framed to death by Madame Ku and Wei Zhongxian. She had been poisoned while pregnant, losing her child and her ability to ever conceive again. Her husband had respected her, but he was cold, never lifting a finger to find the people who murdered their baby. Now, she was a widow. I sighed. Her life had been a series of tragedies. By calling me brother, instead of your majesty, she was shedding her royal mask. In this moment, we weren't emperor and empress dowager, we were just family. Zhou Yufeng took her hand, tears streaming down her own face. Sister, please don't cry. His Majesty is wise. He will restore our house. Madame Ku and Wei Zhongxian will get what's coming to them. It took a long time for Zhang Yin to calm down. She tried to kneel to thank me, but I caught her before she could hit the floor. We're family. No more of this. Unless it's a formal ceremony, I don't want to see you kneeling. It's exhausting for you, and it's exhausting for me to watch. I stood up and looked at my wife. Yufeng, stay here and keep her company. I have work to do. I paused at the door, my voice dropping to a low whisper. Either way, we win. Back in my study, I had no idea they were plotting to seduce me to death. I pulled out my Great Ming Sustainable Development Plan and read it over. I felt a headache coming on. This plan relied on my officials actually cooperating. Looking at the state of the court, that was a fantasy. I needed military power. If they didn't listen, I needed to be able to cut their heads off. But to control the army, I needed money. Huge amounts of it. The border generals and local garrisons wouldn't move an inch without silver. Building a new, loyal army would cost even more. It was a vicious cycle. I needed money for the military, but I needed the military to seize the money. I knew where the wealth was hidden. The corrupt officials and the merchant princes were sitting on mountains of gold. In the original timeline, when the rebel Li Zicheng took Beijing 17 years from now, he tortured 70 million taels of silver out of the officials. The Qing dynasty squeezed out another 30 million later. The money was there. The 8 great merchants, the rich families in the south, the royal relatives, they all had it. But to strip them of their wealth, I needed soldiers. If I moved against them now without an army, they'd unite and destroy me before the year was out. Damn it, I cursed under my breath. It's a dead end. I even considered opening new silver mines, using my knowledge of the future to find the best spots. I had to find a way out of this loop. I knew exactly where the silver was. I remembered the locations of the 8 great silver mines of China from my history books, Tongbai in Hunan, Fengning in Hebei, Lianjiang, and others. Any one of them could fund the Ming treasury for decades. But I shook my head and dismissed the idea. Mining was too slow, and the technology of this era was too primitive. Even if I started now, I didn't have anyone I could trust to run them. If I sent the current officials, they'd just report that they found nothing while lining their own pockets in secret. Besides, dumping that much silver into the market would just cause massive inflation. I needed the economy to move, not just a pile of metal. As a man from the future, I knew how to make glass, mirrors, soap, perfume, and even high-grade salt or cement. But I couldn't do that yet. If I invented them in the morning, the formulas would be stolen by the afternoon. I'd just be making my enemies richer. I rubbed my aching temples. One step at a time, I told myself. I had to kill a few people first to get the initial capital. Once I funded my loyal guards, everything else would follow. Is Wang Qingyan back? I asked. As soon as the words left my mouth, Wang Qingyan stepped into the study. Your Majesty, I have returned. He handed me a scroll with both hands. This is the inventory of Chun Durun's estate, seized last night. I scanned the list. 12,000 taels of silver, 2,000 acres of land, 5 estates and shops, a mountain of rare antiques and paintings. The total value was at least 25,000 taels of silver. My expression didn't change. In this era, almost every high-ranking eunuch and official was corrupt. Sell it all, I ordered. Turn it into silver as fast as possible. 20,000 taels sounded like a lot, but it was a drop in the bucket. A border soldier's salary was 18 taels a year. This haul wouldn't even pay 10,000 soldiers for a year. I didn't even know the exact numbers of the bygone troops yet. If I wanted to fully staff my personal guard, I needed over 500,000 taels annually. It wasn't enough. Not even close. I set the list down. Has Li Ruolian arrived? He is waiting outside, sire. Send him in. Li Ruolian entered the room, wearing his red flying fish robe. He knelt instantly, his heart pounding. He was just a mid-level officer in the Jinui, the secret police. A man of his rank usually never saw the emperor. He had no idea why I had summoned him. Stand up, I said. He stood, but kept his head low. Looking directly at the emperor was an act of disrespect. I studied him. He was over 6 feet tall, powerfully built, with sharp, energetic eyes. Unlike the commanders Tian Urjin and Su Xianchun, who looked like they had been hollowed out by wine and women, Li Ruolian looked like a true soldier. Officer Li, do you know why I called you here? I do not, Your Majesty, he replied firmly. But whatever your command, I will face 10,000 deaths to see it done. I smiled thinly. If I ordered you to go right now and cut down Tian Urjin, Su Xianchun, and Wei Zhongxian, would you dare? Li Ruolian dropped back to his knees without a second's hesitation. Please issue the decree, Your Majesty. You're quite bold, I remarked. Aren't you afraid I'm testing you? Wei Zhongxian is powerful. Your superiors have all joined his faction. Why aren't you loyal to them? Your Majesty, I am a member of the Jinui, he said, his voice booming with conviction. We are the emperor's eyes and ears. My loyalty is to the throne, not to a commander who betrays it. Tell me who to kill, and they are dead. I watched him closely. The current commander, Tian Urjin, was a puppet appointed by my predecessor. In the original history, he would be replaced by men who eventually betrayed the Ming to the rebels and the Qing invaders. But I remembered Li Ruolian. He was the one man who stayed loyal to the end, dying in battle at the gates of the capital. Officer Li, I have just taken the throne, I said. The court is unstable. I want to retake control of the Jinui, purge the factions, and clean up this empire. I wasn't joking about killing Tian Urjin. Sire, I am willing to trade my life for his. I cannot reach Wei Zhongxian easily, but I can use my position to take Tian Urjin by surprise. I could feel his sincerity. If I didn't have the knowledge of the future, I might have thought he was just flattering me. Sit, I commanded. Li Ruolian looked shocked. Even the highest ministers rarely got a seat in my presence. For a low-ranking officer, this was a dream. He thanked me profusely and sat on the edge of the chair. Tell me the truth about the Jinui, I said. His face darkened. Your Majesty, the Jinui is a shadow of its former self. Under Wei Zhongxian, our glory is gone. Officials curse us, and the people despise us. On paper, we have 50,000 men. In reality, my department should have over 800, but we only have half that, and most are old or weak. I estimate there are only 15,000 real men left in the entire force, and maybe only half of those are actually fit for combat. His numbers matched what I knew from history. Who can we trust? I asked. I mean men who are truly loyal to the emperor. My own men are reliable, he said quickly. Also, Wu Mingming, Wang Guoxing, and Gao Wenkai. They are honest men. They can be used. I didn't recognize all the names, and I didn't trust them just because he did. People change. How many men can you control right now? We want to do what is right, sire. That is why Wei Zhongxian hasn't bothered to purge us yet. We can control maybe 3,000 to 4,000 men. It isn't many, but it's enough to take out the rest if we have to. I felt a surge of relief. The Jinui wasn't completely rotten. There was a foundation I could build on. Li Ruolian, I have 2 tasks for you, I said, leaning forward. First, investigate those men you just named. If they are truly loyal, I will reward them. Second, secretly gather evidence of every crime committed by any officer above the rank of centurion. I need leverage. You have 1 month. If you succeed, you will be the new vice commander of the Jinui.